Hey ladies, I have read your practicum log number 2 and your final portfolio submission today, and I provided feedback. I want to remind you when you go back in and look at your practicum log feedback that you want to make sure that all recommended changes are integrated into log 3. We also want to encourage you, I think I mentioned this before, go back in and make sure that you are making progress to attaining all of your goals and objectives. If there are areas that you are not going to be able to cover or complete, then you need to reach out to me and we need to talk about that and come up with a plan. You should have 200 hours logged in Typhon at the completion of your practicum. Bear in mind that 5 of those hours are likely from 617 are going to be goal and objective development, and then in 618 you have another 10 hours that you've likely used for goals and objective development. Everything else should have occurred in the practicum setting unless you've had approved research or conference time. Make sure that your total column that has all of your shifts together equals 200 or more hours. And make sure that you've gone in and to look at the feedback that you've been provided, and don't hesitate to reach out with questions. I know you're probably at the end of the road and thinking, okay, I have one more of these things left. Let me just get through it. Just let me know if you have questions. I'm happy to talk about it. So many of you guys are having such exciting experiences in your practicum, from teaching in the classrooms to working on projects in the hospital. The practicum setting is really where the rubber hits the road. Think about it for those of you that are teaching in the clinical setting, and you've gone with students in their clinical environment and you've watched them meet patients for the first time, or one of you monitored head-to-toe assessments this week. How exciting is it to see those light bulb moments go on, to see those students in the practicum setting gain confidence, feel more self-assured, be able to look at their own strengths and weaknesses and be able to kind of have a plan for ways to make improvements. That is very much what it is like for me to read your practicum logs. I get to see your light bulb moments. I get to see the rubber hitting the road. I'd so much rather do it in person, trust me. But the reality is we're kind of in a flat environment here, so I get to read your logs. I appreciate the detail and the attention to providing that that you make so that there's clarity in your practicum logs and that you are being attentive to showing your own professional growth in those logs. So just make sure you take that feedback and reach out with questions. Your portfolios were fantastic. Again, it's another assignment that is really just very fun for me to grade. As future educators in just a few weeks, you can appreciate that sometimes there are assignments that you just don't love to grade. And some assignments you're super excited because, one, you may have designed them and you want to see what happens when the students engage with the material you've designed. And sometimes it's just because it's a great way to get to know your students. For me, the bane of my existence is discussion boards. I would get rid of them in a heartbeat. But for our intents and purposes, our university believes that it is a method to collaborate in between students, so we are required to have those in courses. I would so buck the system if I didn't wind up in timeout. So for right now, they're there. For me, the most exciting thing for me in this course to grade is probably your final integrative literature review and your portfolios. And the portfolios are just fun because I get to know you. I get to see pictures of you or see your experiences. Sometimes I get to hear your voice depending on what you put in as an artifact. Your classmate, Dawn, did a personal introduction to her portfolio and how fun it was to open the portfolio and get 2 minutes of who she was. A warm, friendly, hello, this is me. You may or may not choose to use a portfolio in the future. Know that with Blackboard as a student enrolled in Liberty, you're going to have access to this course 3 to 6 months, depending on the year. So just double check with online technologies. Most of the time it's 6 months. So you can copy the link to your Blackboard portfolio and port it out and send it if you want it to as to employers if you're looking for a job or for a promotion. If not, consider designing one out in the World Wide Web. There's lots of portfolio platforms that you could choose to use. Some are free, some cost a little bit. This is the way we're going. We're really moving away from paper. So start thinking about the feedback that you were provided and how you can integrate that into your own personal portfolio in a format that is something that you value. So I appreciate the efforts. Let's see, my notes. Okay, let's talk about next week. Your integrative literature review, your final version is due next week. When you prepare to do your final version, I'm going to have you open up part one. It's all a combined document. It's not two different papers. So your integrative literature review is beginning with part one, and then you pick up in a synthesis of part two in the paper format. Open up part one. Go back in and make sure that all the feedback that you were given to polish, to improve, to adjust and change, part one is accurate. The other thing you want to do is make sure that the keywords, the search parameters, the limitations you used in your research review are accurate. Did you use the databases you said you were going to use? Did you have to expand your data search to 10 years instead of 5 years? Make those changes so that your document flows. You should start at the beginning of part one, read it through, make changes, and make sure it's congruent with what you actually did in your matrix review. And then you're going to pick up with another level one heading and begin your analysis. This is what needs to be in your final draft of your integrative literature review. You should have a title page. The second page should have an abstract. Please look at your APA manual for proper formatting. And then on page 3, part 1's going to start. And then you're going to pick up in part 3 and you're going to finish the analysis. So you're going to have a section that goes in and discusses your research review. You're going to explore the 15 articles that you found that were relevant. And you're going to synthesize what was there. You're not going to give me a paragraph summary of all 15 articles. You're going to, before you start this, you're going to pull your 15 articles out and you're going to group them thematically. You're going to put articles together that shared common themes, that came up with common agreements, and you're going to group your summary by themes, not by individual articles. This isn't a summary, this is a synthesis. So if you were attempting to answer the question, is simulation a better teaching strategy than a clinical exposure for critical thinking? Then if you found 3 articles that said simulation using low fidelity technology did not improve critical thinking in students as compared to clinical education, you would put those 3 together and you would talk about what those authors had in common thematically about that content. Now, there may be one-offs. You may have 15 and only 8 or 9 of them fit into some kind of grouping. You may have 1 or 2 that just are in their bucket all their own. You're going to use level headings 2 and 3, depending on how micro detailed you get, in organizing the analysis of what you found. In that section, you're going to provide that analysis, and then you're going to talk about, you're going to write about your the strengths and weaknesses of your process and how you went about your integrative literature review. And then your next section is going to be addressing bias and validity, internal and external validity of your findings of the articles that you found. And the last thing you're going to do is going to be your conclusion. You're probably not going to title it conclusion. You're probably going to title it implications for future nurse educators. However you can title it conclusions if you want. Not terribly descriptive, but it works. In that section, you're going to answer your PICO question. You're going to say, this is my PICO question, and this is what I found. And you're going to explain, and this is what I found, and you're going to cite the sources that support what you found. You're going to answer your PICO question. And then you're going to tell me why I care. Why would a nurse educator care about the relevance of your PICO? And you're going to support why someone reading your literature would care. So you're going to do a synthesis. You're going to talk about limitations and validity and bias. And then you're going to give me a conclusion that's related to the implications of what you found. Tell me what you found and tell me why I care. And then you're going to go into your references. You're going to put in your references the articles that you reference. So it's not everything from your matrix. It's the things that you pull from your matrix and put in your paper as feedback, as citations. Let me back up just for a second and talk about citations. In this paper, you should be using a combined in-text citation. And a combined in-text citation is when I was just talking about those groupings, so let's say you found those three authors that all agreed that simulation using low fidelity was not as good as the clinical experience, you're going to put a parentheses around those groupings of three authors or three sets of authors. So it'd be authors in set one. List them with their date and a semicolon, and then the next group of authors with their date, semicolon, and then the last group of authors, date, semicolon. And you're going to put them in alphabetical order, how they would be found in your reference list. Your APA manual gives you details on how to do that. If you have properly synthesized your material, you're going to need to use a combined in-text citation. Okay. If all you've done is summarize, you're probably not going to feel the need to do that. So my hope is that you're attentive to that detail and make sure that you're doing a synthesis, not a summary. They're different. You're getting ready to graduate, so we want to make sure you've got that ability to pull those details together in a synthesis. Okay. The only thing you're submitting is the completed integrative literature review. I do not need to see your matrix again. I don't need to see part one again. I need to see the whole combined paper. So part one would be integrated with part three, and you would be submitting one file that is your final integrative literature review. Make sure that your paper title is descriptive. It should not say integrative literature review. It should tell me what kind or what title or what your subject was. Make sure you've looked at your headings. Are your headings relevant? Are they concise to your topic? In this paper, you should have level 1, level 2, and level 3 headings. If you have not used level 1, level 2, and level 3 headings, it is likely that you have not organized your paper in enough or used enough detail to require them, and I'm going to encourage you to go back in and look at revisions. This is probably one of the more challenging assignments you've done in your MSN. There is a reason we wait until before you graduate to make you do it. We want you to have all those skills. We want you to have as much practice in writing as you possibly can. We want you to have completed research. We want you to really have a sense of who you are and what clinical areas you're interested in before you develop that PICO question, so that your product here, the thing that you've discovered or thing that you've validated or thing that you know now, is relevant to you. My sincere heart hope is that this has not been an academic exercise, that you see the meaning in this process and it has grown you as a scholar. That is a vital role of the nurse educator, is for you to be a scholar. And this is that baby step towards that. Now, I know many of you are going to be piecing out and going, I am never, ever going to do research again. I just need this to be over. That's okay. I was right there with you. And less than a year later, I was in a doctoral program because I was really excited about the thing that I looked at and wanted to look further into it. So that's about it. I hope that this helps give you some guidance and structure in how to approach your integrative literature review. Know that if you have questions, if you have concerns, I'm happy to talk you through those. I know that this is challenging. I know that this is stretching you. But where we're stretching, we're growing, and we want you to grow so that when you graduate, you've got the skills you need to be a successful nurse educator, and one of them is scholarship. So, holler at me and let me know if you have questions. Know that I'm here. I hope that wherever you are that it is not raining, unless you really need rain, and then I hope it's raining sorta. I'm out in Roanoke, and it's drizzled on and off all day, and we've really needed the rain. So I am trying to be grateful for the rain, but my puppies are not happy with the rain. So wherever you are, I hope you're well. Touch base and let me know how you are. Take care.